No, I wasn't recording. Yeah, unplugged AFNI workshop. No. Okay, this is new territory for me. It's going to be a little complicated because I'm going to ask for, because I have access to Uber subject, I'm going to ask for your input about making a script. I'm going to use that to then generate the script because it's a very long script. I'll upload it to the server. You'll download it to your MVPA directory. We'll run it and do some debugging, and I hope we'll get to the actual MVPA portion for at least a single subject. And we are going to try to end at 4:30. So come hell or high water, when 4:30 rolls around, I mean, we're just going to leave if people are okay with it. Or I'm going to leave. You can stay here. Okay. Sound good?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Just make sure you're logged in. Make sure it doesn't log out at any point. Make sure AFNI is working, and let me find my MVPA directory. Okay. Right. This Haxby data set is the original data. There were 6 subjects, and within each subject's directory, there's an anatomical directory, there's a functional directory. In mine, I have the results already done, but I'm gonna delete those. So here is what it would look like if you were setting up your own analysis through ubersubject.py. We have our subject ID. Let's say we're going to analyze subject 3. I'll call it SO3, and we're going to call it, the group ID is going to be MVPA. So like, what's the study name? Analysis initialization. Okay, we have it's a task data set. It's in the volume domain. Okay, it does slice time correction, alignment. Do you want to change any of these? Take out blur, very good. Why is that?
We want to keep them very.
Right, yeah, we don't want to be smoothing across all that variability in the pattern. All right, so we have choice for an anatomical data set. What?
Do you also want to take out TNRC?
You could. That's a good question, actually. I didn't think about that too much, but yeah, that would introduce some spatial interpolations. I don't think it would affect the pattern that much. It would to some extent, though. Geez, that's a good question. I'm thinking, if the reason that I want to warp it is if we want to use an atlas, that would be useful. Now, you could analyze it in single subject space. If you remember, we had a brief discussion yesterday about using this XMAT transform that contains all the transformations, and you can use that to reverse something from MNI to single subject space. So we could do that, but I'm just trying to give us the option to use that. But I understand your logic, and that's understandable. Yeah, so you could choose not to do it. I'm going to keep it just so we have those options open. Okay, so let's say we're analyzing subject 3. I'm going to choose the anatomical data set. I should check this, but I already know that the anatomical does have the skull, so I leave that checked. And then epi data sets, there are quite a few of them here. So we're still within the sub3 directory. Go to func, and then this contains all 12 runs of the data. So I can hold shift, select all of them, open, and it will load all those into memory. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12. As far as stimulus timing, okay, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Where am I? I am in the func directory. Okay, this is where all the timing files are. Now, man, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path, but just wait, sub3 func vi bottles, let's say. these are local times. Remember, we were talking about global times versus local times, right? Global times, if you ever use that format, it's one column, and if we don't explicitly tell 3D deconvolve this is local times, it's going to get confused. It's going to think it's global times. I'll show you how to modify that when we actually generate the script. But there's no toggle switch that I see in Uber subject.py. But just be aware, this is rare that this would happen, but it does pop up from time to time. But it is in local times format. So I select all of these. I have 8 categories: bottles, cats, shoes, faces, so on. Now, another thing I know from the Haxby paper is that each of these was presented for 24 seconds, right? Uber subject.py makes it easy to specify that. I'm going to use this block basis function. And the first parameter here is the duration for each trial in seconds. They're actually, it's a block actually. So there's face for 24 seconds. Then there's, I think it was another 24 seconds of rest, something like that. Then bottle, 24 seconds, and so on.
So this may be off topic for what we're discussing now.
Yeah.
But I thought even if you give it the block condition, the duration should still be as long as each trial is. So.
In this case, we're treating it as though it was one big event. Yeah. There is this one type of design which is called a mixed block and event-weighted design, where within a block you have irregular timings. But in this case, it's almost like you're saturating just one stimulus. The stimuli are, probably slightly different from each trial within that block, but we're assuming that it kind of washes out, and we treat the entire block as a trial.
I mean, doesn't it depend on what your expectation, because in the timing files, it only has one thing.
Yeah.
Or one time.
Yes. Yeah.
So basically, even though you're getting multiple face presentations, it's going to be for 24 seconds.
Yeah. And then the init file types, again, IM is going to individual modulate it, so we get one beta for each occurrence of that particular condition. Let's see. These are expected options. Because we didn't include that blur block, don't worry, this isn't going to be applied. Or it shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't. Motion limit, I'm content to leave it as is. Anything from the peanut gallery, you want to increase it, decrease it? Does anybody care? Okay. We'll take the easy way out. All right. Now for regression, personal preference. So I have 8 cores on my machine. I'm not sure what we have on our machines here, but it'll just max out basically however many cores it can use, and it's going to speed up the preprocessing or deconvolution quite a bit. Anything else in here that people want to change, like regress motion derivatives, cluster simulation, REM will fit? Any preferences at all? I don't have any, just so you know. I'm not.
Shouldn't regress the motion?
Motion derivatives? Good choice. Any rationale for using that?
I mean, I'm saying to do it because you sense it.
Yeah. Also, MVPA, like we saw, is pretty sensitive to motion. So anything we can do to try to account for that is probably good. Okay. I'm making an executive decision. I'm going to turn off cluster simulation because it takes a long time, and with 12 runs, that's going to take quite a bit of time. So I hope you don't mind. Let's see here. Align options and TLRC options. First of all, TLRC, what do you want, TileRack or MNI? MNI? Good choice, that's what I would choose. Okay, for align options, usually the cost function, their default is whatever they found has been the best, so I tend to leave that alone. As for giant move, should we use that or not?
How close is the functional to the end?
Good idea. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do to get both the anatomical and the functionals in the same directory. Again, you won't have to do this because we're all checking this together. So here's my anatomical. I try to overlay one of these on there. And turns out they're so far away from each other, they're not even, yeah. So you see why you got to check this, right? So let's leave that on. Sound good?
Yes.
All right.
They've got those other move options like ginormous.
There's ginormous move.
Are those not in the GUI?
They're not, yeah. That's actually something I prefer to do. What we're going to do is we're going to stop the preprocessing right after it does normalization and check it if we need to switch something else. Because it is, it's relatively quick, we should, be able to change it if we need to. There are a couple other options. The best one I found is something called init xform auto align. It does the align centers script. And if I've ever had a problem with that, that always fixes it. I haven't had a case where it's failed.
Is the align centers in the GUI?
I don't think so. You'd have to manually alter the script that gets, yeah. It doesn't have every single option, unfortunately.
That seems like a common one.
Yeah, I would like it because I do use it quite a bit. Yeah. Anything else people want to check with the raw data before we change anything?
If the first 5 volumes
Oh, yeah, good idea. If the first few volumes are showing any kind of saturation. Good catch. She was not planted in the audience. So, yeah. So all you need to do, add an underlay to check for the first few volumes. You just click anywhere in the brain because it should show up as a whole brain intensity difference. And do you think there's any rationale to remove the first few TRs? Probably not. You're not seeing that really steep drop off in the beginning. Okay, I'm just going to check a little bit just to make sure, nothing is too out of place. Looks pretty good. Anything else?
So we don't have a skull strip anatomy yet, do we?
Right. No, we don't. We don't.
Because if we're going to be registering
Yeah.
ultimately to standardize, we need to check that after skull stripping.
Yeah, it is a good idea to check the skull stripping, yes. Last chance, anything else? Okay. Good. Yeah, those are the main ones. Checking about the first few TRs, checking about whether anatomical and functional are out of alignment. If I was being more thorough, I would, if this were a new data set that I just got off the scanner, I'd probably look through every, each one of these volumes, do something like, video mode, something like that. But it takes quite a bit of time, and I can say right now that I have looked through it, and it is pretty good. All right, excellent. I like this. You're screwed. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Okay. This is our mega script. What? Oh, yeah. Yes. So unless there are any more alterations people want to use, I'm going to create this, upload it, and then you'll run it. Yeah. So we've all created it together, kind of. Okay. So here's the actual AFNI proc.py command it's going to run. I'm going to modify this a little bit just to make sure that you can run it from your directory because it's going to append a bunch of paths on my machine, and I'll just remove those. Okay, anything else? I don't think so. All right, that looks good. Okay, notice, I look again at the blocks. Blur is not in there, so we're not doing that. And then this is actually going to run the AFNI proc to change this. Notice it says, warnings for global stem times format of file. That's something I'm going to change now, just to make sure we don't run into any problems. But for now, I'm going to X out of that. What do I have here? Yeah. One thing that's a little annoying about this is it creates this new directory path when you first create something through uber subject.py, but don't worry too much about it. Let's see, open proc.sub03. No. I'm going to call this just mvpa proc.sh. Okay. If you have a Mac, you can edit your shell scripts through Xcode, which is pretty nice. So the one thing I want to look for is 3D deconvolve, and make sure that it's only looking at stem times local. Am I recalling that correctly? Notice I'm looking through the help files to make sure I'm using the right options. No, local times, right? Sensor, that all looks good. I'm going to help you out a little bit and also give you a mask, which will be output by default during the pre-processing stream, which will restrict our analysis and speed up everything considerably. I'm just double checking. Okay, it did do stem times IM, does block 24. This looks similar to what we saw with the MVPA demo. It regresses not only the motion, regresses the derivatives of the motion, does that for each block. It's going to be a big design matrix, but it will work. We should have enough time points to estimate all of these. Actually, let me make sure we do have enough time points. So 3 func. So 3 task on. Okay, a little snag here. We're going to have, I'm actually glad we caught this. If we try to regress the motion derivatives, we're going to have too many regressors, right? We only have enough degrees of freedom as we do time points. So within a run, if we have now 150 regressors, it's going to fail. Sorry about that.
Could you regress just the motion?
You can regress just the motion.
Does it do means and derivatives?
Sorry?
Doesn't it in deconvolve put the motion means and derivatives
Yeah.
separately?
Actually,
One set of those?
now that I'm thinking back through this, I think the reason there's so many regressors is because it's doing it for each run. So it may actually be the total number of time points across all the runs. So I think we actually might be fine. We're going to see. Okay, if this fails, game over and we're done. But that's my thought process. Again, they changed this recently to do it for each run, which is why we might see a bunch of these regressors. I think we should be okay. If we're not, well, I don't know. Last thing I'm going to change just to make sure you can all use this is to make sure that there are no path issues. So what do I want to do with this? Okay, so we're going to be running this from each. Let's run this from the sub3 directory. Yeah, so all I'm going to do is find and replace. I'm going to replace this with I think that should make it okay for everybody. What? Oh, I just removed. I'm just trying to make it so you can run it locally. It's hard coded some paths in there that it's going to throw an error for you. Yeah, so if you run this from the sub3 directory, you should be fine. Let's take a couple more looks. Yeah. Okay. In the interest of time, there was something that was going to fail during alignment. So I'm just going to input what's going to make sure you don't run into that error. What would happen is if you try to run this as is, the giant move actually wouldn't be enough. Those things are so far apart. There's giant move and there's ginormous move, depending on how far apart they are. And you would get a really weird alignment. So my plan was we would run through part of it. You would check it after this. You'd see that it was warped in a weird way. But I'm just going to tell you that that's what happens and program something so that you don't run into it. And the command for that is going to be init x. No. Let's see here. Init xform auto center, yeah. You would see that it actually throw an error, even though it tried to do the alignment, and would tell you, it would recommend that you input init xform auto center to rectify that. Okay, in any case, I think that is good enough. I think we have everything we need. I'm trying to see if there are any other path issues which will make this fail. I don't think so. Okay, I'm going to upload this. Time out, everybody. We are running out of time. Even if we did get this to work, we wouldn't have enough time to run through this. Special thanks to the CLAMs. Thank you so much for having me here.
An honorary clam, Andy.
Honorary clam, thank you. Congrats. Yes, I hope this was useful. I hope to see you guys again in the future at some point. And if you do the AFNI boot camp, I hope this gives you some good background to get the most out of it. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience. Thank you for pulling through with all of this. Thank you.